the Swans. Cheer the red and the white, honor the name by day and by night, lift that noble banner high.
Welcome to a quick Bevy with Swans fans, where each week Swans fans have 45 seconds to answer some burning bloods and footy-related questions over a quick bevy or two. Today, Chris and I are joined by another special guest. Chris, do you mind introducing our special guest?
Sure thing, Noddy. Today we have a brand new guest. This week we have a blue bagger to give us belligerent Swans fans some beautiful insight. Welcome to the podcast, Britt.
Hi guys, thanks for having me. Really excited to be here.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us.
And what are we drinking this week?
So, Britt, before we get into the weekly Big Four questions, just a few quick questions for you off the bat so we and the listeners can get to know a little bit about you. How did you come to be a footy fan? What is your favourite footy memory or moment? And who is your favourite footy player, either past or present?
Cool. So I guess my connection to football is pretty strong. So both of my grandfathers actually played in VFL. So which is pretty cool pedigree.
That's like Tom Papley, I think.
Right. It didn't really quite pass through to the next generation, but that's okay. So my grandfather, Tom Simmons, played for Cartlon, and he played 27 games in the VFL around the late 1940s. So it feels like a very long time ago. Unfortunately had some knee injuries, which kind of cut him back from his football and running career. But from kind of that, my dad was very quick to get me into a Blues jumper from day one. So that's where my kind of allegiance lies for the most part. But then my mum's dad, Clem Goonan, also played football, and he played for South Melbourne. Which is pretty amazing.
Awesome.
So he was in the early 60s as a defender and a ruck rover. He scored 2 goals, but we'll dispute that it's 3. He can remember them very clearly.
Okay.
Mark that down. And his favourite quote is to say that he and Adam Goodes have won 2 Brownlow medals between them while wearing the number 37 for the Swans. Obviously, both are with Adam Goodes, but that's fine. Yeah. And I think he has one of the best jobs in football now. He actually works at the MCG, so gets to watch football and get paid for it, and kind of reminisce and catch up with people that come in. So yeah, that's my connection.
That is an amazing connection.
Brilliant.
Wow. I'm kind of in shock here. That's so cool. Well, actually I was, so when we learnt that you were coming on, and thank you again, I had a quick look at the history of games between Carlton and South Melbourne / Sydney, and 231 games have been played between the 2 clubs, or 2.5 clubs. And Carlton winning 130 times, 6 draws, and South Melbourne and Sydney winning 95 times. The pre-1982 win rate for Carlton was 56%. And then from 1982 onwards, when our Bloods became the Sydney Swans, we've played 62 games against each other. And Sydney have won 36 times, Carlton 26 times. So that's a win rate of 42%. So I would say that it's better for the Blues if the Swans had stayed in South Melbourne. But we might not have had the chance
Noddy.
We might not have had the chance to meet Britt. So we met you at round 11 this year at the SCG when the Blues played the Bloods. And we got the chocolates that day. But our group were just all really stoked to meet you. And that's our connection with you here tonight. So thank you again for coming on.
Great to be here.
Awesome. All right. So move on.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. All right. So we're going to kick off with the Big Four weekly questions. Remember, if you'll both have 45 seconds to answer each question. And I'll give you a warning bell when you have 5 seconds to go that sounds like this. Everyone get that?
Yep, got it perfectly.
Awesome. All right. So we're going to start with question 1, and we'll kick off with Britt and then move to Chris, and I'll let you know how you're going on time. All right. Question 1. As a sport, are we too soft on racism? Okay, go for it, Britt.
So I think this week really did it for me. Watching the video of Eddie Betts on AFL 360 was just utterly heartbreaking to see kind of that he's had to go through this so many times and we're still not learning is just so disappointing. And I think as well, the onus is too often on our amazing Indigenous players to call this out, to educate, to even reach out and to forgive the players or kind of anyone who's being racist in their behaviour. So I think we do need to acknowledge that, yes, racism is entrenched within our society and some of the systems that we have in place in this country. But I think as a game, we have a platform and also a responsibility to do better and to bring the community along with us on this journey. But I think there's really no excuse in why people kind of aren't educated on this, particularly someone like Tex Walker, who is a captain, who is a former teammate of Eddie Betts. And we need to do better. And I also do want to just pose a question about why do we need to be so divisive in kind of how we're dealing with other people?
Yeah, great response.
Yeah.
Chris, over to you, and then we can have a general chat.
Yeah, I think the general question, are we too soft and racist? I mean, if we're going to start making some proper differences, we got to start by putting in some proper penalties. I mean, Tex Walker goes out, he gets 6 weeks for some racist taunts. Gaff got 8 for punching someone in the head. Like, at some point, we need to start hammering people for the mistakes they're going to make, and that may be the only way they're going to learn. I mean, as Britt was saying, they've had all the training in the world. Tex has had all the training. He's been the captain of multiple Indigenous players during his time there, and he's still making these mistakes. I mean, I can only, and having dealt with racism in my past, you feel helpless, you feel like a waste of space, you feel like your existence doesn't matter. It's painful. And watching Eddie Betts on his last legs to be in that much pain as he was, it's harmful for the whole football community. Having a good Eddie Betts in AFL is good for the sport. It's just good for Australia. So we need to start doing better. We genuinely do need to start doing something better.
Definitely. I mean, Robbie Young was the target of Taylor Walker's racism this time. And I think he wasn't even directed to him, and I think a Crows official overheard him and reported him, and rightly so. Mm-hmm. So, like, how does a player who should absolutely know better, as you said, Britt, like, should have, he's a captain, he's a leader of a community, and how is he thinking that that's okay under his breath? It's not. Mm-hmm. And you watch the video between Taylor Walker and Robbie Young, and Robbie Young is like consoling him. And that's exactly what Eddie Betts and Tony Armstrong are saying. It's like, it's up to the Indigenous people to be the victims and the healers. It's ridiculous. And I'm with you, Chris. 8 weeks for a punch to the face should at least be 10 weeks for a racist comment.
At least.
But it's really not our spot to call what it should be. But it seems uneven as a footy fan. It doesn't make sense to me. So. All right, thank you for listening to me, guys. All right, question 2. We're going to go with Chris first and then move over to Britt. So question 2, Marc Murphy, what a player? Question mark?
Yes, so sorry about the way I phrased that. I did put the question mark there with a few dots before it. Let's just lay out some of his achievements. He's about to play game 300 and he's going to retire straight after that game. So great to see him come up with that 300. Good to see that happen. And good to see the club falling behind him as well. Unfortunately, he's not going to be wearing the blue. He's going to be wearing the white. Not that really matters, of course, but just a bit of something there. He was the Rising Star 2006, AFLPA Best New Player 2006, ex-captain for 4 or 5 years off the top of my head. 2011 All-Australian, 2011 Best Player in the game, voted by his peers. So incredible career, like genuinely incredible career. Just unfortunate Carlton couldn't do more with him. It's just a bit sad that he finished his career without any massive achievements, but he does, and he's going to definitely leave as a champion, no doubt.
Over to you, Britt.
Yeah, I think obviously he was drafted as one of the first of those 3 number 1 draft picks. So Murphy, Gibbs and Cruiser, and came into Carlton with kind of the hopes of this kind of next phase in our rebuild on the shoulders, and he was like this future. But I just think that kind of the time that he started playing at Carlton was really unfortunate in that, he didn't have that opportunity to shine, and that often a lot of off-field stuff kind of got in the way of his performance. But I think he's done an amazing job as a leader to steer the club and also the playing group through some of the off-field kind of issues that were happening. And yeah, I think he's going to be sorely missed. But I will just note that he has played some very good games in the white. One in particular is a goal to win it against Fremantle, which stands out in my mind.
There you go. Yeah.
Awesome.
Nice.
No, he's silky smooth. And I think we were chatting off air that a couple of these games that led to the 300 have been medical sub. I think you mentioned that, Chris, and we were chatting before, Britt. Surely the player feels a bit disgruntled. Do you have any general positions on that, Britt?
I mean, I still think it's so amazing to reach 300 games.
Yeah.
There's only 5 other people who've done it for Carlton. And I don't think it's anything to kind of shy away from. So 300's 300 in my books.
Yeah. Well said. Yep, I agree. All right, question 3. And we're going to go with Britt first, then over to Chris. Question 3. Women in football. Give us your thoughts.
So definitely on board with more involvement. So I think I was saying to you guys earlier off air that I think in the AFL there's this inherent kind of prerequisite that you need to be a player to then be involved in coaching or the media, because that's how you understand the game better. But this kind of approach that we have then generally excludes women due to our historic nature of our game. But I do hope that this is going to be shifting with the expansion of the AFLW to 18 teams and kind of seeing perhaps more female coaches getting involved with those teams would be a great step forward, but also extending to the coverage that we have and making sure that it is accessible for people to watch. And I think like pivoting away from football, but briefly looking at the Olympics and how the Australian women were standouts in Tokyo, we need to celebrate it. We need to give it that airtime and the space that it deserves, not burying it in the back of the sports section. So making sure that it is equal so that people do feel like it's deserving of being there.
I let that one go because I wanted to hear the full response. Thank you. All right, over to you, Chris.
Yeah, I think there needs to be more women in football. It just makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of fans, and just as Britt's saying, I think she nails it. It's if we're going to make all of this big deal about it, you have to be an ex-player in order to be a commentator or a coach, then this having the AFLW with the 18 teams is going to do exactly that. So we start hopefully seeing some of the tides change and start seeing some more females in the media, females in coaching ranks. Like let's look at it now. We've got Nat Edwards, afl.com.au. How many times do you have to say that? afl.com.au, Nat Edwards. Great insight, great personality, very personable, but also very.
Her only problem is a Hawks fan. She's a Hawks fan.
Well, I'm okay with that because she doesn't burn it onto us all the time. She's probably the best sports journalist / presenter in any sport in Australia. I'd say that's full stop, men or women. I think she's very, very, very good at what she does. Daisy Pearce is an excellent presenter and color analyst and everything when the football is being played. And you have to also remember, she's a modern player. She understands the modern game. We're talking about guys who are commentating the football that used to play 30 years ago, and they're well past it. Why are we even listening to her? Bring on Daisy Pearce. We need her more. And Cara Wilson, journalist, easy to hate her when she's smashing your team. More times than not, she's probably right, and she's well respected in her field. So 3 prominent females in the game. We need a lot more, and I think that will come every time.
Yeah, nailed it, guys. I would much rather listen to Daisy Pearce commentate a game than BT and JB and all these bloody.
And it's that they only get time for special comments or crossing to the boundary to Abby Holmes.
Abby Holmes, yeah, she's great as well.
Give them more time to actually call it because they do have those insights.
Absolutely.
Yeah, completely agree.
And we were talking off air about Kelly Underwood. And just that game against the Dockers when Heaney took that screamer and she just called it so well. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be one of the clips of the year. Heaney! I just thought, it was unreal. So, fully agree with everything you've said. And I'm personally stoked that the Swannies have got an AFLW team now. The Blues have had one in, I think, since the beginning.
From the start. I went to the first game against Collingwood at Princess Park. The lockout. Awesome. It was amazing.
Who won?
Don't do that.
I think it was Blues.
It has to have been.
Yeah.
against the old foes. All right, that's awesome. All right, guys, let's move on to question 4. Question 4, and we'll go with Chris and then finish up with Britt. Sam Walsh, Harry McKay, and Charlie Curnow. Excited about the future?
Yeah, I think the Blues should be very excited. I mean, you've got 3 players at incredibly important positions. They're all young. They're all very, very, very good. Any of those players, you might find that the majority of teams in the AFL would happily trade out their first pick for any one of those players immediately. And I guess that goes to show how good they really, really are. They are very, very, very good players. Now, are they going to stick it out? I don't think the players are the problem at Carlton. I think the board's the bigger part of the problem. And I think you need someone to come in here and just kind of level out some kind of consistency amongst the playing group and the coaching ranks and everything to start getting the best out of the Carlton. So I think they're a great team. I think they actually are lined up to maybe have a pretty good crack in a few years. And hey, look at Richmond a few years ago. They were in a pretty bad spot and they turned it around incredibly after hooking up with a couple of really good players. So maybe this might be the changing point for them.
Yep. Over to you, Britt.
I just love watching them play. I think Sam Walsh has this amazing hunger for the ball, but his work rate off the ball is just insane. When you go and watch him at the MCG, it's great to sometimes sit up high and actually just see how much of the ground he really does cover. But he has this ability to bring his teammates into the game and be a game changer with kicking goals to sway momentum. So I think we saw that against Collingwood a few weeks ago. And then Harry and Charlie, it's so great to see them playing together at last, this double attack, one being able to push up the ground, one being able to stay in the 50 and kind of have that one-on-one contest, I think is really exciting. But we also kind of forget that Jacob Wiedering is a similar age. We often kind of think that he's much older, but he is kind of still around this playing group. So I think it is really exciting. And I do just hope that like the return from injury, I think all 3 of them have kind of faced injury in the last 2 weeks, if not kind of shorter periods. So hopefully they can stick it out and get some games together and kind of build that kind of culture.
Definitely. I absolutely think the future is bright for the Blues for all these players that we've just mentioned. And if they can get that second tier of the role players, or there's actually like a bunch of first round draft pick players in the Blues, like Lockie O'Brien, Paddy Dow. I know Silvani wasn't a first round, but he would form a nice combo down the front with Harry and Charlie. That goal from Charlie in his first game back, that one step from the 55 and just booted it through. You're reminded of his talent. Yeah, it's just to burn. Some of the best marks I've ever seen are done by him. I think he had 2 of them in that year where he had his breakout, and I was just like, this guy can play.
Just pure athletic talent.
Yeah. So obviously that's very tragic that he's had such a timeout with all the injuries. So yeah, look, we're hopeful, like as footy fans, that the Blues can get it together. Lastly, obviously the Teague train maybe be derailed shortly, but as a Blues fan, just a quick thought on that.
I truly hope he isn't. I do love being on board the Teague train. I think, giving some more time for this group with people coming back into the team and another kind of off season and a season that isn't interrupted by COVID, I think would be really beneficial for a young group.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think it's the time is at its very darkest for Carlton right now. I think I think there's a lot of good stuff to come out of this, and I'm with Britt. He's hoping that they stay aboard the T train. I think it's going to end up in a good place. So we'll see. Absolutely.
Well, guys, that's it for today. A massive thanks to Britt for those awesome answers. I've got one last one, and it's a little bit cheeky. Britt, what would it take for you to barrack for the Swans over the Blues?
I mean, as much as my grandpa would hate me to say this, the premiership didn't do it, and a move to Sydney didn't either. So I'm not sure.
All right, then you're a blue bagger through and through. All right, well played. I like that. Awesome. Over to you, Christo.
Yeah, look, I just wanted to say AFLW, the Swans are in. Let's give that a big applause. Awesome stuff. I'm looking forward to that. So we want to cheer that as much as we can. And In terms of the podcast, please follow us on Instagram. We do some pretty hilarious stuff, if I say so myself. And if you're tuning in from home, make sure you send it through your questions through Instagram, through Facebook, or however you would see this. We'll get them for sure. Send them through.
Awesome. And remember, if you enjoyed this, but find yourself craving even more Swannies content, make sure to check out A Bevy of Bloods, in which another mate, Steve-O, and I do an in-depth review of the Swans' last game, the Swans' next game, and have a bit of a chat about footy too. You can find us on Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts, as well as on our socials at A Bevy of Bloods. Oh, over here, we're going to pass over to Britt to send us off.
Oh, was it Go Blues?
Well, it has to be.
Yeah.
So you say Go Blues, and then we'll cheer on the Swannies.
Okay. Go Blues.
Go the Swannies!
Up the Swannies!
Woo!